o'clock.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual interactive panel discussion brought to you by the ACHE of Georgia. My name is Sherry Yoon, and I will be serving as your ACHE technical host for today. We are glad y'all are here. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items to help y'all navigate the program in our virtual environment. For the purposes of noise control, your lines have been muted for the duration of the session. The chat function will be available to you throughout the entire event. So please feel free to drop in your questions or commentary there. The event is being recorded and will be available for viewing in ACHE's learning management system in approximately 2 business days. Today's session is worth 1.5 hours of ACHE virtual interactive education credit. To earn this credit, you must be logged in for the entire 90 minutes of this event. All attendees who meet this requirement will have their 1.5 virtual interactive education credit applied within 2 weeks from today's event. We do encourage you to complete the evaluation for this event. Please visit the link that I'll drop in the chat box here shortly before we close out today's session. Now, to begin the session, let me turn it over to the chapter president, John Paul Kroom, FACHE, and he is the president of All Star North Fulton. John, you're muted.
All right, that might work. Thank you, Sherry. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. It is my honor to welcome you to today's ACHE of Georgia virtual interactive meeting. Thank you again to ACHE for allowing us to use your learning management system so that we can provide you with these virtual interactive credits. Today we have a very packed agenda, so I'll just take a few minutes for some important chapter announcements, and then we'll move on to our program, which is entitled, once again, Strategically Mapping Your Early Career Development. I'd like to start our meeting by recognizing our sponsors and expressing our gratitude for their support. Our platinum sponsors are Atrium Health Navicent, Grady Health System, Moss Adams, and Wellstar Health System. Our gold sponsors are Act Talent, Grant Thornton, Healthcare Program Advisors, Piedmont Healthcare, Northeast Georgia Health System, and Visia Technologies. And our silver sponsors are DT Spade, Georgia Nurses Association, KCA Firm, Metro Atlanta Ambulance Service, SSR Inc., Viblio Health, and announcing our newest silver sponsor, Premier Federal. Our upcoming meetings are displayed here on this page, and I'd like to encourage everyone to join us on August 22nd for our North Summit in Jasper, Georgia, featuring an all-day educational programs and a networking event on August 21st, which will be the day before, at Reformation Brewery in Canton. The program on the 22nd offers 3 hours of ACHE in-person credit and 1 hour of qualifying credit. Having attended this last year, this is a great event, wonderful location, beautiful part of Georgia. If you were able to make this, please do so. It's a wonderful opportunity to both interact with other ACHE members and get ACHE credit. Visit the events page at www.acheofgeorgia.org for details and registration. To encourage members to take the Board of Governors exam, our fellow advancement committee is offering an online archive of last fall's prep class for $50. And look for details on our homepage. This fall, ACHE of Georgia is also offering 3 $2,500 academic scholarships to students pursuing healthcare career-focused graduate degrees. Apply by September 3rd on our website. And stay connected with ACHE of Georgia by following our social media pages and visit our website for more information. We'd also like to invite you to get involved by serving on one of our ACHE of Georgia committees. Contact ACHE of Georgia for more information. And today's program offers 1.5 hours of ACHE virtual interactive credit. Our topic again today is strategically mapping your early career development. And as you can see, We have an outstanding panel, and it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator at this time. Our moderator today is Graham Fox. He is the COO and CFO of GI Specialist of Georgia, one of the largest GI groups in the state. Graham has over 20 years of executive healthcare experience overseeing the strategic, operational, and financial growth of physician practices and health systems. He specializes in physician practice health system integration and has held multiple leadership roles within both nonprofit systems and academic medical centers, where he has led numerous physician acquisitions and integrations, practice startups, financial turnarounds, and employment agreement negotiations. He has also consulted numerous projects in revenue cycle efficiency, organizational development, and provider compensation redesign. At this time, it is my pleasure to turn the meeting over to our moderator, Graham Fox.
Thank you, John Paul, and thank you, Sherry and ACHE, for hosting us today. I will go ahead and admit I am having a little bit of a voice issue. And so if you hear that, it's not your microphone or not your speaker, it is me. That said, I want to just express my real excitement about both our topic and the panel that we have for you today. And just as further background, on me. I'm originally from Texas, but August 1st, today, is literally the anniversary of my move to Georgia. I moved here to pursue my master's of public health at the Rollins School of Public Health at Emory. And I always assumed Georgia would be maybe a 2, maybe a 3-year stop. As of today, that is 27 years ago. And so now that I have, I guess that officially makes me a Georgian, and as well as completely dated myself. So with that being said, let me move on to the discussion and specifically our panelists who will now introduce themselves. Ravi, I'll start with you, given your first in alphabetical order.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Ravi Batra. I wear a couple of different hats. I work at Core Consultants as a clinical consultant. I work at Northside Gwinnett in the ICU and with learning resources and clinical education. I'm also an intern at Care and Health, and I'm a student at Georgia State University doing my MBA, MHA, Business and Healthcare Administration dual degrees. For my background, I originally got a bachelor's of biology at Georgia State, and then I went to Georgia Baptist College of Nursing for my nursing degree. And I've been a bedside nurse for over 10 years. And this topic has been really important to me because as I made my pivot from bedside to business, I really had to come up with the strategic plan to be successful.
Great, thank you, Ravi. Andrew?
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Ravi. My name is Andrew Brickley. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Early Medical Center in Blakely, Georgia. We're a 25-bed critical access hospital with a skilled nursing unit that has 117 beds. I received my undergraduate degree in history from the College of Charleston, later got my MBA in healthcare management at Kent State University, and achieved my fellow status with ACHE in June of 2021. My career in healthcare spans roughly 20 years. I started off in medical device sales, not really realizing that healthcare was the career I would end up being. But as I learned more about the industry from that side, the more interested I became. Later transitioned to a healthcare system in Ohio, starting as an account manager for laboratory services and sales, later being promoted into a director of sales position who was responsible for selling all the concepts and or all the different service lines that the hospital had and how they would lead to better continuity of care. Wanted to further pursue an operations side of my career, so I took advantage of moving to Louisiana, much to the disdain of my wife and children, to become vice president of business development at a rural hospital in St. Landry Parish. Currently CEO of Blakely Medical Center. This topic is very important to me, and I want to take the time to participate today because I recently went through having my job and position eliminated very unexpectedly, and any type of advice or direction I can give from what I learned is something that I told myself very early on I wanted to give back to individuals who might end up in a similar position, and especially with as volatile as healthcare is, it might happen sooner than later. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And Tammy.
Thank you so much, Graham, and my fellow panelists for having me today. I'm Tammy Jackson, and I'm an associate partner with Agility Consulting, which is an executive search, talent management, and equity compensation firm. I've dedicated my practice and my work to identifying exceptional leaders in healthcare, digital health, as well as social impact and nonprofit organizations. I do have a specialization in helping organizations place senior leaders in information technology and digital roles. And I also consult with some Fortune 500 as well as healthcare organizations that partner with me to help with technology recruitments. I have a bachelor's in information systems and started my career as a software developer over 25 years ago with Accenture. I grew in roles of increased responsibility over time, leading large-scale software development initiatives with budgets up to 20 plus million. And while in those corporate roles, I always had led a team and had a team. And so it was natural for me to mentor others and help them in their career journeys. I took some time off to raise my family, did some entrepreneurial ventures. When I returned to work, I decided I wanted to be in a role where I could continue that work that I enjoyed with mentoring folks and helping them along their career path. And I did start working in recruitment in different roles. First as a solopreneur, I did staffing, I did high volume recruitment. And in 2015, I landed a position in healthcare, which was my very first position in healthcare, where I was an account manager for, and my primary account was a large healthcare system out west, which many of you all know was formerly Dignity Health, now Common Spirit Health. And in that role, I had a large staff of employees staffed on EMR implementations that I was leading, but I was also responsible for consulting engagements for the healthcare organization. I was recruited to join a national search firm as a IT practice manager, and I've been in healthcare roles since then, serving as a vice president of executive search and also a partner level in executive search. This topic is important to me because, for one, I'm extremely passionate about a human-centric and equity-focused approach to executive search and talent management. I've dedicated my career to this, and each of us have a unique career path. And Andrew, speaking to you, we've all been in those positions and those roles, and I get satisfaction out of having an equal opportunity to help people reach their potential and find those careers that they're seeking.
Great. Thank you, Tammy, and thank you, panelists. Now everyone understands why I'm so excited about today's presentation. Before we get too far into it, I do want to take a step back and discuss some of what we expect to get out of today. And so to frame the conversation, what we really want to talk about is that the fact that in today's changing and challenging healthcare environment, early careerists in particular need skills and strategies to position themselves for the future. As healthcare leaders, we all have the freedom to create the career paths that link our talents, interests, and passions to the right job. Today, however, no job comes with a lifetime guarantee. Growth, flexibility, the scope of that job, however we define these variables, is at the utmost of importance at each stage of our careers, but in particular for early careerists. So to achieve upward mobility, we must consistently reinvent our brand and our strategy for how to achieve and succeed in what we want to achieve. The panel today will focus on what I'll call nuts and bolts career planning for early careerists. And secondly, our peers on the panel will provide their own real life examples of the steps that are necessary to take our career paths to the next level. Also, as part of this being a virtual interactive, we really want this to be truly interactive. So we're going to be asking a series of polling questions. These questions will help guide our conversation and help us focus on where to best spend our time. The first question should be coming up now. Bruce, if you'll go ahead and put that up. Please take a moment to answer the prompts. And the first question is, how many years does your current career plan account for? So we'll give everyone a second to make their selection. Okay, and we have our results. So it looks like that 1 to 3 year is the plurality choice, with 4 to 7 closely following. So that's a great insight. Thank you, everyone, for participating in that poll. Our first question for the panelists, Ravi, I'm going to come to you first. How do you go about setting a career plan, and how many years does your plan account for?
So my career plan, it consists of about the next 2 to 3 years. One thing that I realize is that since I'm in school, my career plan right now is pretty structured. I plan to graduate in spring 2026. And so, along with school, I said, I know that my curriculum is not going to teach me everything I need to know. So, with all the different roles that I'm in, I said, let me immerse myself in a couple of different experiences. So, still working bedside, working for CORE as clinical consultant, doing my internship. I said, this will help me to figure out what I want to do after I graduate. And so I can work with my mentors to figure out what I want to do. And so the great thing is that with this panel, we'll talk more about that.
Great, thanks, Ravi. Tammy, can I turn to you? Same question.
Sure. So I have over 27 years of professional experience. I'm dating myself too, Graham. I think we were finishing up around the same time. And I've had two different careers, first starting as a technology leader and now an executive search consultant. So I would say that from a career journey perspective, I'm at the tail end, if you will, and I'm doing exactly what I envisioned myself to do. So several years ago, and I'll probably talk about this a little later, I took the services of a career coach and talked to them about my plan and what I aspired to do. And what I aspired to do was to make VP or partner level in a search firm, which I was able to accomplish, which I was extremely proud of and still am. And my goals as I move into the latter stages of my career, as my children are starting to finish college, is to consult 100%. And I'm starting to gain momentum and starting to be in a position where my clientele is building so that I can move toward that next stage of my journey.
Great, thank you, Tammy. Okay, our second polling question is actually a two-part question. The first is, and this has really been sort of foreshadowed by both Ravi and Tammy. Do you have a mentor? And then if yes, how many times have you met with that mentor in the last 6 months? Okay, we'll give everyone just another second to get their answers in, and there we go. Okay, so look at that. Do you have a mentor? 57-43. The yes is slightly in the majority there. And if yes, how often are you meeting with the mentor? I'm going to take a guess that maybe the zeros are, hopefully that's some of the no's that have answered there, because that seems like a lot. If you have a mentor and not meeting, that might tell you something. So if those were your answers, think about that. But it's good to see that most people are meeting with their mentors at least multiple times a year. So well done. Well, with that question, Andrew, I'll come to you first. Let me ask you, what are mentoring relationships look like in your life and in your career, and how they helped you? And you're on mute.
There we go. Sorry. at the beginning of my career, they were fairly informal because honestly, I didn't know what I was doing in that process. But in the jobs that I held, especially when I got into working in hospital systems, having exposure to having conversations with the CEO or the COO or even the CFO put me in a position to get to know them, but also learn about their positions, which enabled me to say, from someone who's starting out on their healthcare career, what are the things I should start doing now to be able to move into a C-level position? Because that was really my long-term goal. Once in my first job working at Mercy Medical Center in Canton, Ohio, my CEO, gentleman's name Tom Ciccone, he's since retired, really put me on the path to where I am today in the chair that I'm sitting in. So he really took the time to show me that you should get an MBA, you should get involved with ACHE, which I knew none of these things coming into the healthcare world, just knowing I didn't want to stay on the sales side forever. I needed to better myself to take advantage of opportunities that could present themselves. With that being said, too, as time progressed, they've gotten to be a bit more formal. But I also, to stress to the group too, as you progress through your career, there's also going to be some informal mentoring relationships where everyone has a different way of doing things, but you take note of the things that you like and you take note of the things that you don't like, and you kind of put that into your either your memory or your toolbox for a resource for later on. So that's what my mentoring relationships have looked like thus far.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Ravi, Tammy, anything you'd like to add or talk about the mentors in your career pathway thus far? It's okay. We can. I know I'm coming off script here, so if I'm
No, it's
catching you off guard,
yeah,
that's okay.
actually, I would say that mentors, just agreeing with Andrew, have been both formal and informal, and I've had a combination of both. Don't have to meet with them all the time, but what I've done in my career is find people that I see that I aspire to be like, and I think it's fine to, and I would encourage early careers to identify those folks, especially as you're moving along your career trajectory, that you aspire to be like, and ask for time on their calendars. While they may be busy, it may take time. People are usually very kind and will offer you time to meet with them because they probably would be honored that you feel that way about them. So take the initiative, put yourself first, and actively seek out mentors and use these formalized environments like ACHE and participate in the mentoring programs and sign up for them. NAHSC also has a mentoring program. So if you're interested in having a mentor from that group of leaders, I encourage you to use those formal as well as informal pathways.
Great, thank you,
was
Tammy.
also going to echo what Tammy was saying. Even when I was in nursing, like all my mentors and informal mentors, they helped me to figure out what type of nurse I wanted to be, what type of hospital I wanted to work at. When I wanted to do local travel nursing, I was so nervous about it, but I turned to my mentors to kind of give me that encouragement to get that push. And so now, even in business, the mentoring relationship has just been so important in my life. And so I echo both Andrew and Tammy's responses as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's it's so important, especially for early careerists. I can't underscore the need to have a mentor, especially at that phase of your career. As a little plug, those of you that are members of ACHE of Georgia, we do have an annual mentorship program. That application process will be coming out probably either later this month or very beginning of September. So be on the lookout, because if you don't have a mentor, this is a great way to find one and get linked up with one and help create that guidance that is especially important at an early career stage. Okay, Bruce, we're ready for our third poll question. And this is now we're going to be talking about professional organizations. And so the question is going to be, how many professional organizations are you in? And of course, here by professional organizations, we mean things like ACHE, maybe HIMSS, HFMA, American Nursing Association, those sorts of organizations. So if you can go ahead and answer the question, and again, we'll give everyone about a minute to respond. Okay. Wow, we've got a very enthusiastic group. The plurality is 3 to 5 organizations with at least 2 on the heels. So that, I mean, almost 80% of us are in between 2 and 5 organizations. That is very impressive. So now turning back to the panelists, let's Tammy, I'll come to you first. How has your involvement in professional organizations impacted and guided your career?
Oh, wow. That's such a loaded question, and it certainly has for sure. I mean, for one, involvement in professional organizations puts me in positions where I'm able to sit on panels like this and provide content and speak about my experience to others who can find value in some of the work that we've collectively all done. But professional organizations are an amazing opportunity to network. I'm currently active in 3. One being ACHE, where, of course, I served as the former diversity inclusion chair, and a role that I'm very proud to say in 2023, I've got to continue plugging this because I was so proud that we won the Region at Large Award for Chapter Accomplishments in Diversity. I also serve as the president of the Atlanta chapter of NAHSE, which is the National Association of Health Services Executives. And I'm also a member of Women's Business Leaders of the U.S. Healthcare Industry, WBL, which is a premier network of women healthcare executives. All of these organizations provide me with a number of things, from educational opportunities, an opportunity to meet with people, to engage, to continue to build my industry expertise, and get an understanding of what those key initiatives, key challenges that are happening within healthcare. It gives me access to a network if I need to pick up the phone and give a call to someone, if I have a question, need to bounce some ideas across. I mean, I can go on and on about the value of these professional organizations, but first and foremost, it's about the network that you can develop by being a part. And also, I would also say, for an early careerist, it's important to engage and be a part of professional networks because it provides an opportunity for you to continue to enhance and build upon your skill set in so many different ways that are invaluable. And when I talk about skill sets, even soft skill sets, the opportunity to be in a room and network with others helps to develop your communication skills. It helps with your public speaking skills, volunteering on committees for these professional organizations. All of these things really help to build your leadership acumen. So it's invaluable, I would say.
Great answer. Ravi?
Yeah, so I was involved in professional organizations early on, even when I was in nursing school. All my nursing instructors really encouraged us to get involved. And so I became the vice president of the Georgia Association of Nursing Students, like pretty much right away. And also such a great opportunity to learn being in those leadership roles. And so, like, fast forward, once I got to ICU, my focus with professional organizations became a little bit different. I did join the American Association of Critical Care Nurses. I got my certification with my CCRN. But the reason why I really enjoyed being in that professional organization was because I went to the conference every year. I learned about evidence-based practice, and I was able to stay on top of the trends to take really good care of my patients. And so now with the business side of things, I kind of echo what Tammy said. It's the resources that I'm getting from ACHE of Georgia from a local level and from a national level, and from all the networking and meeting different people. And meeting different people have been exposing me to other organizations as well. So like with ACHE of Georgia and with Georgia State, I started finding out about HIMSS and Georgia HFMA. And with this, I can talk to different people and join different organizations, and that'll broaden my perspectives, and that'll help me to figure out what direction I want to go in once I graduate. And also, just another note is that because I'm a student, a lot of these professional organizations are a lot cheaper than they would be for someone who's out in their career. And so I'm just trying to take advantage of my resources.
Such a great answer. And from both of you, what I note for everyone at the audience, if you will, is it's not just about joining the organizations, it's about engaging, it's about participating. And I hear that so clearly in both of your answers. It's so much more than paying the dues and listing it on your resume. Get out there, and you get to meet people, you get to gain valuable skills. That's really and that's, getting back to the financial piece, as Ravi said. I mean, that's where you get the most of your membership. So I hope that I really wanted to highlight those elements of the answers because I think they're vitally important. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're now we foreshadowed this a little bit again, but we're gonna get real for a moment. And our next polling question is, Bruce, you can go ahead and put it up, but have you ever lost a job unexpectedly? So I'm gonna go ahead and let folks answer that question. Okay. We'll wait for the results to come up. Okay. So about 60-40. I think the importance of this question is, and Andrew, I'm going to be turning to you, as you know, to talk about this topic specifically, given your experiences. But, especially in healthcare, career paths, no matter how much we strategically map them out, they're almost never linear. And as you can see here, a good portion of even just our audience have experienced these types of events. So it's important for everyone to note that if it happens to you, you're not alone. These are almost commonplace within healthcare. So, Andrew, I guess the question to you is, with career paths, then they're never linear, as I said. They sometimes stair step, they sometimes zig when you expect them to zag, and very different from what we may set out and plan. What steps, can healthcare leaders take proactively to prepare for those types of career transitions, specifically maybe the loss of a job?
It's taking advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you while you have the job, which I know that sounds maybe a little just common sense, but it really is. When you are working at a hospital, regardless of the position, there are a lot of different aspects and areas of the hospital that have a lot of different ways that they run, or they might have different disciplines. Expose yourself to those. That would be my biggest advice for the early careerist. Really start to look within the organization to where you're working and see if there's other areas where you would like to gain some knowledge on, because you might not like it, but maybe you'll find out that there's another path that you might want to pursue in your career. You might say, well, I didn't know about supply chain or finance or what it goes into processing claims. Just three off the top of my head, which are not the most exciting, but you get what I'm saying, is that by really looking around and starting to have those conversations, it might open your eyes to a future possibility if, in fact, that your job is eliminated, or it might just cause you to maybe want to take a different path that leads you on a wider career. Outside of that, there's the professional networking piece, but it needs to be consistent. And one thing that I thought I was doing a good job of, but realized it could always be done better, is working outside of that network. Because when you're talking to the people that you talk to within your network, a lot of times those conversations can get stale. So my biggest bit of advice that I can give to everyone, that from my experience, is when you're talking to the people within your network, and maybe you're already doing this, ask them for an introduction from their network, that for someone that you don't know, that is a cold connection, so you can shake that off and really it doesn't have to be an in-depth conversation, but it can be an introduction to learn more about them, have them learn more about you, and then see how that relationship can develop and maybe how that could be a resource for you in the future. Also with networking too, you want to, I informally reach out to people in my network. Holidays, I will send e-cards. I'll just, for people, I'll be like, how are you doing? Are you still in your same job? This is what I'm doing. Because you don't also want to just suddenly appear when it seems like you have a need. I always, like I said, I reach out to people, but I always make myself available as well. I have colleagues in Ohio to where they were developing a 340B program. And I said, hey, I have 8 years experience here. Could I be a resource for you to answer some questions that maybe your team has? So making yourself available, making yourself to learn, those are the best pieces of advice I can give. And it's also being active in your community too. Whether you're starting in your career in healthcare, or you're mid-level, or you're a leader, your visibility in the community is very important, and also being involved with the community as well will also serve you ultimately, whether it's in your current job or I believe in the future.
That's a great answer. And I think the fact that you've sort of touched on how wide your network needs to be, for lack of a better word, you know, and the fact that, you know, we may not be looking for a job, and we may not even be, you know, accepting of a job that comes, but that the job of being a professional never ends. So just the importance of that. So great answer. Tammy, we're running a little ahead of time, and so I'm going to just stop and see, you know, as an executive search leader, do you have anything that you would add as additional advice?
Absolutely. So, you know, career transitions, just to overview, this is a fact of life, and at some point it could happen. So being prepared, as Andrew mentioned, is essential. We talked about, you know, of course, Andrew, we've talked about tons about networking and building your network. And what I would say about that is that networking is a skill that you have to develop. It doesn't come natural to some of us. So it's something that you have to incorporate as part of your regular professional life and your journey. I spoke at a seminar last year where the topic was on leaning into your network and building your network. And one of the things that I shared was you have to develop your confidence and you have to practice these skills. So, and what's one of the pieces of advice and takeaways that I gave was leave that event or that networking opportunity with the name of a contact of at least 3 people that you do not already know. And those 3 people are people that you can in turn leave and develop that contact. So leave with, hey, let's catch up over coffee. Let's have a 15 minutes so I can follow up and answer a few more questions about that topic we may have talked about. So again, this is going to continue to develop that contact, because you can meet so many people, but until you meet them where they are, ask them questions, you just never know what type of connection can spawn. Andrew talked about staying current. Cross training on new skills is always important, because if you're put in this position, you want to make sure you're always prepared and always engaged in on continuous learning and development, keeping up with the latest trends, those technologies and regulations in healthcare. Pursue certification and advanced degrees while you can and enhance your qualifications. And lastly, I want to talk about career development and coaching. As an executive search professional, this, of course, is core to my heart because it's what I do day in and day out. I think you should all do a regular self-assessment of yourself, look at your career goals, look at your skills, make sure they're in alignment, seek guidance. I employed an executive coach a few years back as I was set up on my path of journey to become a partner in executive search. They helped me to determine what my North Star was as I started to envision where I wanted to go. And I think that was invaluable in me being able to assess myself and to help me get to the goal of where I wanted to go. And lastly, I would tell you that it is important also that you build relationships with executive search consultants who have expertise in your core competency. Because if you need to utilize them in your assistance of finding a new role, you want to already have a relationship with them and be top of mind instead of reaching out to people when you need something.
Great advice, Tammy. Thank you. All right, Bruce, we're ready for our next poll question, and this is poll question number 5. It has to, we're now going to talk about branding as a concept. Well, there are many ways to build a brand. One way, and maybe an important way, is through what we've just been talking about, and that is networking. So this is a nice dovetail. Our next polling question is already up on the screen, but it's very simple. How many network events have you attended this year? So we'll allow a few moments for responses. Okay, let's see if we have, yep, there we go. All right, look at that. We have a very strong majority in that 1 to 5 window. That's great. And then we get to almost 90% if we go to 6 to 10. Fantastic. Tammy, I'm actually going to come straight back to you, given your expertise in your role as executive search. So, and kind of thinking back now to the branding concept, what are some strategies early to mid-careers can use to brand themselves? And specifically, if you have anything else about how you then translate that brand into your networking.
Absolutely. So this is one of my favorite topics, and there's so many conversations on this, and so many different methodologies you can employ. But what I would say first and foremost is you have to establish your brand, and to network, you must first be your true and authentic self and come as you are. Understand your strengths, know what you're good at, what you stand for, and make sure these things are in alignment with your current role and the role you aspire to be. Um, take an inventory, as I talked about earlier, about doing self-assessments of your career. Understand what makes you unique. What is your value proposition? Clearly be able to articulate your value to your team or your organization. This all kind of builds into you as you develop as a more senior leader. Ensure you're consistent with the way that you present yourself, right? So if you're an active poster on LinkedIn, be authentic. Present yourself with the same kind of brand and values, and people will start to recognize you and remember you for those things. We talked about those mentors. Use your mentors. Follow those people that you aspire to be on LinkedIn. Follow their lead. Use them to help you kind of determine your pathway if that's the way that you choose. Going back to kind of other strategies to brand yourself, thought leadership is always very important. If you're not a writer, or if you're not interested in publishing yourselves, repost others' work, comment on it, interact with it. That's another way to build your brand. And we already talked about professional organizations, and obviously this group is very active, as we've seen from the polls, but the fact that you're here really speaks a lot to your interest in developing your career, and of course being involved as well. But not only be present, as one of our panelists says, but volunteer. Volunteer on projects, whether it be in some of your professional organizations or even in your own organizations that you're working on, particularly those that are visible to senior leaders or have cross-functional teams. And one of the last things that I would say in terms of branding is document your achievements. I'm a big believer in writing things down so that you can understand what you've done, and not only document and record those achievements, but also the impact of that work. And this will be invaluable when it comes to performance reviews or applying for new roles, because, I don't know if you all, but I'm not a robot. I don't remember everything that I do. I have a book that I've recommended, and I've also shared and bought it for some mentees that I have. And it's called the Review Planner. I pulled it out for the purposes of this call. And what it is that it's just a blank book that allows you, it's more of a workshop, if you can, to put down on a monthly basis what your goals are, what your accomplishments were, some of the things you want to do. So at the end of the year, when it's time for your performance review, you can pull this book back up and you can look at everything that you've done and be able to recall it. And it also helps you as you're looking at your goals and objectives for the following year. If you're interested in that book, I'm not advocating it. I don't know the person who wrote the book, but choosetheladder.com. But I think it's a very useful tool. And lastly, don't be afraid to brag about yourself a little bit. If there's something exciting that you've done, share it on LinkedIn, share it with your network, but do so in a way that it highlights, how you've collaborated and made an overall impact to others. And those are great ways to brand yourself.
That's fantastic insight. Yeah, I mean, it's that I'm making note of the book that you mentioned there, because it is so hard to get to the end of a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, the next time you sit down to write your resume and remember everything you've done. So that what a great tool. Ravi, I'm going to turn to you now. You've already told the audience of your, change. You went from a young professional working bedside as a nurse over to the business side. And I'm sure that along that path, you had to rebrand, or maybe you're even still rebranding yourself a bit. So what does that look like for you, and what were some of the tools that you would recommend?
Before I answer that question, I actually wanted to speak to what Tammy said, because I've talked to a lot of students, and including myself, a lot of us have imposter syndrome. And so having a portfolio of your achievements, I was reading an article about it, and they said that that helps a lot to kind of counteract some of that imposter syndrome. And so in addition to like being ready for your performance and reviews, I think that'll also just give that boost of confidence for early careerists and students just kind of trying to navigate their career. But as far as branding, I did rebrand a little bit, but my focus when I became a nurse was the patient from the first place. And so as I pivot to the business side, my goal is the same, to take care of people in the community and to take care of my patients, but just my focus has changed, and I want to look at it more on like a systems level. And so I don't feel like my brand has changed too much. I go to a lot of networking events, and people still ask me like, are you still a nurse? And I can say that I'm still a nurse because I work PRN. I work a couple of shifts at the hospital still. But I feel like even if I was in an executive role that I didn't work bedside, I would still tell them that I'm a nurse. And what separates me as a leader would be the experience that I've gained as a frontline worker. And I'm able to really like empathize and think about what the patients need. And so I would say I'm a nurse by background, and I've just transitioned from there.
Yeah, great answer. And I think going back to what Tammy was saying, to reemphasize that, I think you're being authentic. So that's a great answer. Um, okay, so going back to the title of this session, it's strategically mapping your career, and with the emphasis there being on strategic. So obviously, we've learned throughout the last hour, or almost hour, that this has looked different for each of you. And so before we open it up to the audience for questions, which we'll do in a few minutes, I'd love to get a summary of your career journey, looking back and maybe highlighting three of the most important things that you did to solidify your success on your career path, and what you would highly recommend to those listening in today. Andrew, we haven't spoken to you for a little while, so let me start there.
Sure. I guess the best way I could sum up my career is someone who came into the healthcare industry as incredibly unfocused and not really overly driven by anything, to becoming incredibly focused and driven to achieve a goal in the end, which was to continue to progress in my career. Three of the most important things that I did to make that happen, first and foremost, and I think both Ravi and Tammy also spoke to this as well, is continuous learning. You never want to just be satisfied with what you did today, because I mean, what we're doing today could dramatically change tomorrow or Friday or next week or what have you. So what we knew today could be obsolete. So the continuous learning on that aspect, but also bettering yourself as well. As I mentioned at the top of this presentation, I'm a history major undergraduate. I thought I was going to be a maritime archaeologist. That clearly did not work out. So, but here I am, got into healthcare, realized that there was much more to learn, and it was something I was really interested in. So took the additional steps for continuous education, whether it was my MBA, joining ACAG, and becoming a fellow. So I can't give that that advice enough when it comes to that. Also, too, if you do have aspirations and they're not happening where you are, there comes a point where you have to tell yourself it's okay to make a switch. If you've had some direct conversations with your one-up saying, I would like to do something else, I would like to try an additional role, I'd like to go into leadership, and that's not developing, and you've asked for direction, and you've asked for that mentorship to take care of that opportunity, to take that opportunity, and it's just not happening. You're your own biggest advocate, and you have to be your own biggest cheerleader, not only for your accomplishments, but also for the progression of your career. So don't get lulled into thinking that somebody else eventually might take care of you. You have to be your own biggest advocate, not only for your accomplishments, but also for the progress of your career. And if it's not happening, it's okay to take a look around and to see what other options might be out there, because trust me when I say time goes fast. One of the most important realizations that I think has been the overarching reason for my success, it's a two-parter. Whether in healthcare, to be successful, whether you're clinical or non-clinical, we're all here to serve the patient at the end of the day, and we all can make a positive impact on a patient's day or a family's day or a loved one's day when they're in our facility. So you can never lose sight of that, regardless of position you're in. Secondly, as a leader, where I've had success and I've gotten the most satisfaction is seeing my coworkers, my colleagues, the folks I collaborate with, helping them become successful and to help them progress in your career, because the ultimate test of a leader is to create other leaders who can move on and take on additional responsibilities. So those would be the three best pieces of advice that I could give from my career path.
Those are great pieces of advice, Andrew. Ravi, what advice would you have?
Yeah. So I apologize if it sounds repetitive, but the first thing that I did that helped me in my journey is I joined ACHE of Georgia even before I started at Georgia State. I was lucky because at CORE, they got invited to come speak at Georgia State. And so Nicole brought me in and I was able to meet the members of future healthcare executives at Georgia State. I think Maria's on this call. I met Maria and she was a mentor to me as I was developing my career journey at Georgia State. And so that helped me a lot. The second thing, alluding to the mentorship, the structured mentorship at ACHE has been such a critical part of my journey. I know a lot of us have the informal mentors, but the structuredness of the mentorship program has helped a lot for me to figure out which direction to go in, which certifications to get, or just what kind of internship I want to get. That has helped me a lot. And the third thing that has been really helpful for me is just to immerse myself in leadership skills. And so what better way to do that than serve on various subcommittees for ACHE of Georgia. I became president of Future Healthcare Executives for this year, and I've just been trying to volunteer in different ways to learn all that I can.
Fantastic. Tammy, same question.
Sure. So again, for the sake of not being repetitive, I will reemphasize Andrew said, be your biggest cheerleader. So certainly advocate for yourself and make a plan. You know, I had a plan for my career. Initially, over 27 years ago, I thought I was going to be a CIO, but that wasn't in the cards for me. So I've dedicated my life to helping others who aspire to be a CIO or whatever C-suite or senior level position they choose to be. I did seek, a career coach, which I think really helped me with getting perspective and to seek guidance from another lens, which I think was very helpful that with me in my career success toward partner. Earlier, Ravi mentioned imposter syndrome. We've all had it, but the best way to overcome that is to be known for doing good work. Take responsibility for your work. Do do a good job at whatever's put in front of you. So, I take responsibility for the search work that I've done. I've been privileged to work on some really wonderful assignments, demonstrate ownership, reliability, and trust, which in turns helps you to get additional work. And let's see, we, I guess also stay curious and be adaptable also is always, important. And especially with changing technologies and business landscapes, you have to be adaptable. You have to be flexible and, you have to take some things and shrug it off the shoulders, shake it off and get back up and get up and move on the next day.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you to all the panelists for that answer. I think that's some fantastic advice. We are running a little bit ahead of time, so I'm gonna, for the panelists' sake, I'm gonna jump to some of the extra questions that we have. And Andrew, my first question is for you. You have earned the credential as fellow in ACHE. That's also obviously board certification in healthcare management. Tell us about that journey, why you sought it, and the value it's brought you in your career thus far.
The it, the reason I got it honestly is when in working with some of the executive team in some of my first jobs, they all had these credentials. So I was curious about what did that naturally mean. So they explained it to me. I ended up joining ACHE just to start the journey, but a colleague of mine, a gentleman by the name of Neil Keinert, he actually, lifelong friend of mine, he was also involved in ACHE. And we were together at one point just kind of talking about really what it has helped him do. And so it was the conversation with a friend who had that accreditation already put into sharp focus for me that it helped him progress in his career. And I wanted the same. So that was my motivation. But getting engrossed in it and the learning and the 9 different criterias that it makes you learn to become well-rounded, that really is just a starting point, because before that, it was, again, just being very unfocused and trying to say, okay, I know learning's important, but what am I learning? So to me, it's helped with, again, which has been an underlying conversation of this whole presentation, the continuous learning. But it really also has helped me realize that whether it's a finance piece or an ethics piece or what have you, these are the criteria that help you develop as a leader, and that journey's never done. I also thought it was incredibly important too to further myself, because again, undergraduate with a history degree, I'm not a business, I'm not a finance, I don't have those, I guess, those core competencies that will allow someone who's non-clinical to come into the healthcare arena. So that really was the finishing piece for me to really feel that in presenting myself in going out for these jobs, I thought that would show that I've taken the time not only to develop myself, but also to invest in being able to give back to the facilities through the learning that happens. So it's been a fantastic journey, and there's a lot to learn. It is complicated, but to everyone who is not a fellow, when you get in that position, I absolutely recommend that you should go out and get your board certification through ACHE.
Thank you for sharing that perspective, Andrew. And I will second that. I have also achieved my fellowship, I think, for very similar reasons, honestly, and couldn't encourage, couldn't underscore it enough in terms of the importance it's played for my career. So Bruce, as we've been chatting, I did skip over one of our poll questions, but it dovetails really nicely into Andrew's last answer there. So let's do poll question number 6, and that is going to read: has your chosen degree or certification helped position you in your desired career advancement? Okay. Well, good. That's great. We had some pre-conversations and wondered if, maybe there were folks that had invested time or money or resources into something that maybe didn't directly link them into their career path. But these results suggest that we have all chosen wisely. Um, so good for you all. That said, before we get to the Q&A, because we do still have a few more questions, Tammy, I'm going to ask you another question as a recruitment executive. And what are some of the things that you look for in a candidate, good, bad, et cetera? And how does a young audience, such as our assumed audience here, emphasize the positives, avoid the potholes when searching for a job?
That's a great question. First and foremost, as an executive search consultant, I mean, you have to have the relevant skills and experience. If you're talking to an executive consultant, you've probably already passed muster on a resume review and alignment. So what you'll have to do is just make sure from a skills and competencies alignment, you are also further qualified around culture fit. I tend to, when I speak to candidates, I want to make sure that they understand and are aligned with the mission, the values, and the culture of an organization. Of course, look at those soft skills around communication, adaptability. Are you resilient? Are you empathetic? Are you, which is essential in healthcare, of course. And of course, paying attention to detail and really having that strong ethical foundation. Some of the things that probably could come across as negative is, really, if you're in your early career, we talked about imposter syndrome. You want to push yourself, right, to get to that next level, but make sure you're putting yourself in a position where you're set up for success. If your experience is limited, be sure to highlight any relevant hands-on experience that you do have. And if you're switching careers, I've kind of seen a little bit of that in the chat. Be sure to emphasize experience from some roles where there's some transferable skills. Some pitfalls, not being prepared. I mean, first and foremost, have a plan for yourself, understand your experience, be able to talk about it succinctly, understand the organization you want to work for, why. I talked about earlier, being authentic and true to yourself. If you're not authentic and true to yourself, how can you be authentic and true to the organization if you're not in alignment with them? So, those are a few things that I think would be important as you're looking as a early careerist that's looking to search for a job. I can go on and share more if you like, but those are a few things that are top of mind.
No, that's fantastic, Tammy. I think what I'm taking away from there is it's not just about having yes, you have to have the right checks in the right boxes. Don't get me wrong. That's where you started, but it's not just that. It is the cultural alignment between the organization and the candidate is so critical. And I'm glad that you were able to emphasize that. Okay, Bruce, let's go ahead and roll out our last question. And it is, again, pretty simple. Are you utilizing all of the ACHE and ACHE of Georgia resources and tools available to help you network, grow professionally, and advance your career?
So Graham, while everybody's answering the poll, can I give a simple advice?
Please, Ravi.
I just thought about something. This is a super easy resource that can help everyone. But podcasts are such a great way to stay on top of trends. I know ACHE has a podcast. ACHE of Georgia also has a podcast, which I think is on Spotify. I follow the Georgia HFMA podcast, the American Health Law Association podcast. A lot of the episodes are bite-sized. So when you're on your way to work or when you're on your way to a networking meeting or something, you can have something to listen to stay on top of the trends and have some things to talk about.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ravi. All right, Bruce, do we have the results? That's great. Okay, so pretty close to 1/3 of you said yes, and I think that makes you eligible to be on the next panel. And then the rest of, and I'll say I'm in the no category. Um, but Ravi, you've given me some good pointers on some directions that I can head. Okay, I think we're getting close to. Oh, and let me. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to make a quick reminder that Bruce. Hopefully, you can put some of the links to these resources that we've mentioned into the chat, so that folks like myself can dive a little bit deeper in there and get a little closer to Ravi level and my use of all the different resources that are available. With that, I think we're going to go ahead and prepare for the Q&A, and we'll turn it over to the audience. I have seen a couple of questions come in via chat, and if I miss them, Bruce, please feel free to let me know. But one of the questions I think is interesting, and I hope it's not merely semantics. And I'm going to throw this out to the panel. Whoever wants to speak first, please just feel free to jump in. But the question that came in was, can you speak to the importance of having a mentor and a sponsor? So if there's any immediate feedback on that question, please feel free to jump in.
I guess I would want to know the difference between a mentor and a sponsor.
I'll speak to that if that's okay. So a mentor, of course, is someone that you can go to bounce ideas off, that can help lead and guide you and will speak to you when there's opportunities that you may need advice. A sponsor is someone who's going to speak to you if you're not in the room. So essentially, sponsor is going to be that person who is going to advocate for you, speak your praises, has a dedication to your advancement in the organization, and it's going to help to foster your development and growth. It's important to have both. Mentors are a lot easier to get than sponsors. Sponsors are earned, and they're earned by doing good work, which I talked about earlier. So do good work, and those sponsorships will automatically start to present themselves.
Great, thank you, Tammy. I think part of it is just the definition between the two and understanding that, and so I appreciate you jumping in and helping that answer. One of the questions that came in that I think is really interesting is we've talked a lot today about what to do. Tammy, I know in our last answer, we talked about some of the potholes and some of the things that we can, maybe avoid. But I'm going to ask the panel, Andrew, I know maybe I'll start with you and then let other people jump in, but what should a professional not do in mapping their career path? And yeah, so what should we not do?
I think the when it comes to your career path, you have to lead from a place of logic and not emotion, because when you are coming to a decision, whether it's knee jerk, if you're angry, if you're disappointed, that solution probably isn't the right one. So you need to be, and we all have had disappointments in our career, I'm sure. And that was one of the biggest things that I learned, is that you have to be rational when you are in those situations, and you have to lead from a place of logic, and your emotions need to take a back seat to it, which when my job was eliminated and going through the process, and I'm very thankful that I did, I fooled myself into thinking I really was not angry about the whole thing, and it really did not serve me well at the beginning of my job search. So I needed to take a step back and get some feedback that I thought sought out from friends and family and colleagues, and just said, you have to go through this process, and you have to kind of put a bow on that before you can go forward. So it's really being able to, and it's something that honestly I work on all the time. It's not easy, but being able to pull your emotions back from what can be a very charged decision.
Fantastic answer. Couldn't agree more. Both about the process you go through when you have that unexpected event in your career, but also just your allusion basically to emotional intelligence and staying present, staying calm, and doing whatever you can as a human to put the emotions on the sideline. So important, especially in the calling that is a healthcare career. Um, Anyone else on the panel want to add to that? Things not to do in their career?
I would say I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think that was wonderful. I alluded to kind of dusting yourself off and getting back up and doing it again and getting back to it. I mean, we're all going to have disappointments, and you have to make sure that you are keeping a positive perspective on things. The reality is that no one's pathway is a straight line, and you have to be adaptable. And I think I talked about this maybe earlier, is that, there's going to be pivots in your career. You may think that you want to go from A to B, but there's going to be some crooked lines there, and it's not always going to go exactly as you envision, and you can't let that throw you. You have to make sure that you can handle that with the highest level of emotional intelligence as you can, and be able to pivot quickly and reinvent yourself.
Thanks, Tammy. That's also just fantastic advice. Um, let's see. One of the questions that just came in, I think, is a good one because I think it plays off of this most present conversation. And it goes back to networking, frankly. And it acknowledges networking is tricky with an exclamation point. Couldn't agree more. And so the conversation touched on this a little bit already, but are there any tips or tricks for standing out at a networking event? How to start a conversation, maybe having an elevator speech, perhaps memorized. Any tips on that? And again, I'll start off by asking just the panel rather than a specific individual.
When networking, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I think if you go into it thinking that you're going to get something immediately, I think the person you're trying to get to know is going to sense that almost immediately, and it could be very off-putting. Just be yourself, introduce yourself, see if there's a connection, see where the conversation goes, be aware of it. And if it seems like it's faltering, there could be another 300 people in the room, but be cordial, be polite. And if it seems like that's not going anywhere, just again, be aware and make the best of it.
And then I was going to say, as a student, or if you're new to networking, just be really patient with yourself and also be consistent, because the first few times like I was really nervous to go to networking events. And a lot of people probably couldn't tell, but just coming up to people, it was really difficult for me. I also read an article about how coming to networking meetings where it's the same people consistently, it gives an opportunity for people to get to know you. So the first time they may see you, but they won't really get to know you. But after a couple of times of getting to interact with them, they get to learn more about you. And so that repeated exposure helps a lot with connecting with people.
I think it's helpful to, when you walk into a networking event, is to level set with yourself and understand that networking is challenging for most. We're not comfortable talking to people that we don't know and starting up conversations. However, keep in mind that everyone else in the room probably feels the exact same way that you do. So I coach people on this all the time, that when you are in a position where you need to network, find a conversation starter. It could be something that was said on the panel, something that you find in common with that person, Do your homework before you go to that event. If you have a list of the people that are going to be there, find something that you may have in common with someone that you want to get to know. Say, hey, by the way, I went to X school. That's and I noticed that you did as well. And that's a very good conversation opener. And if you can't think of anything, if someone has on some cool shoes, say, hey, those are some cool shoes. People love to be flattered, but it gives you a door to at least get their attention, right? And then you can start a more authentic conversation and possibly would yield to a more solidified contact. Have fun.
Yeah, you got some really good feedback there already in the chat, Tammy. I couldn't agree more. Robbie, did you have anything to add you want?
Well, I was just going to say, speaking about networking, a lot of questions that students have is, do you think that it's about what you know or who you know? I know we've talked a little bit about that, but what are your thoughts, Andrew, Graham, and Tammy, about that piece of networking versus the skills that you've gained in your programs?
The who you know, I mean, it definitely comes in handy. And again, it might not be for a job, but again, too, when whatever the situation is, whether it's a project you're working on for your healthcare facility, or it's a project you're working on for your own personal development, is having those resources at your disposal, and for people to take the time and to want to talk to you about that is fantastic. Also, to share those with others, you want to make sure that one, you're checking with that person in your circle before you extend that, which I'm always happy to do. But it's that balance. You don't want to suddenly just open the floodgates. It's just, you want to make sure that you can speak to the person that maybe that you've gotten to know before you make that connection. So it's a great question.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Ravi. Kind of reversing the tables, and I'll play panelist at least just for a second. I think that question is a really good one because it's something that I've sort of struggled with a little bit as the game has changed in my admitted 27 years in my career. It used to all be about who you knew. Maybe to a certain degree what you know, but it was really about who you knew. And in today's world, so much of that has changed to where you can truly brand yourself. We talked about LinkedIn and some of the other socials that are out there. You can brand yourself in all sorts of different ways where people may not know you in the traditional sense, but they can get to know you online. And I think that becomes, at least I am not a huge user of socials, so I am not the person to be giving advice on that front. But I think that it can be used as another icebreaker, another way to start those conversations, either in networking or even to further that relationship online, in meaningful ways. I think I don't really have any specific advice, like I said, but it can be another tool. So, uh, you know, as Andrew, you said earlier, networking is not a marathon, or I'm sorry, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so this becomes one more tool to gain some yardage or some mileage in that activity. A couple other questions have come in from the audience. One is, any words of advice on how one can explore pivoting from being an independent consultant and entrepreneur um, I guess, or either or, moving up a more corporate ladder with an employer, or perhaps switching employers. Has anyone on our panel gone through that kind of transition and have some words of advice for this questioner?
My transition from director of sales to vice president of business development was a huge jump from a sales side to a true operations side. So don't be afraid to make the move, but once you do, don't be afraid to admit if you don't know something, and just really have the people who do know, don't be afraid to say that you don't know something, because I think that will make you more authentic in the process, and they'll probably help you along the way more often than if you come off as someone who's just all knowing. So don't be afraid to ask for help.
I did the reverse, and as I mentioned earlier, I've had two careers. My first as a technology leader, which was in corporate, and then secondly, I moved into consulting, which as an executive search consultant, working across different global and national-based firms. And as Andrew mentioned, be a constant learner, seek knowledge, ask for advice. Don't be afraid to say what you don't know, and always find ways to continue to improve. If you're moving from being a consultant and you're looking to move back into corporate roles, then you've got to showcase what you've done, right? And the proof is in the pudding. I love working with consultants and helping to move them into healthcare leadership positions. I think that consultants bring a different lens because they've seen a variety of different organizations go through different challenges and been able to help to refine strategies for organizations. So I think it provides an opportunity for healthcare organizations who can have a different perspective by working with consultants that work across different industries.
Thank you both for that answer. That's great. We do have a couple more questions. We probably do have time, but one of the questions that's come in now twice essentially was Andrew. I know I've already asked you about your fellowship in ACHE. Can you talk any further about how valuable that has been, or some of the specifics around how that provided additional opportunities in your career?
Sure. An additional opportunity that was presented to me after getting my board certification was being offered to serve on the examination committee that basically vets and creates the board exam that everyone takes, looking through questions, making sure everything's relevant, making sure all the information is up to date. So that was something I never thought that would actually come out of it. And the individuals who I've met from really across the country who serve on the committee with me has been even a bigger resource, not only with my learning, both personally, but also professionally. So those are the types of opportunities that I can speak directly to. And it just honestly changed my perspective, I guess my point of view on how I approach problem solving, or maybe something I don't, or maybe a topic I don't know, with the vast amount of information that is there before I really got into studying for the exam and really just learning about just getting into the weeds of the whole process, really put into sharp focus for me, again, what I didn't know, and also the different resources that are out there for someone who, again, speaking about myself only, who's non-clinical, to gain those types of resources. So it's again been a very positive experience that I can't say enough good about.
That's yeah. And again, I'll add on just a little bit. I think your perspective is spot on. But I know that in especially studying for the exam, it highlighted some areas that, even though I had been in healthcare at that point close to 20 years, there were still some areas that I did not know how to be, a true executive, a healthcare executive. And so by going through that pursuit, I was able to learn a great detail of information that I didn't already have access to. I think secondly, too, and I know John Paul already provided my introduction, but most of my career has been on the physician practice side. And having my fellow has also helped me in my networking and in my career underscore the fact that I do actually have health system and hospital knowledge as well, that I'm a better rounded candidate than maybe just what my resume reads. So I think for anyone who's thinking about pursuing the FACHE, those would be some of my, words of wisdom and some of the value that it has provided to me. Okay, I think that we're at the end of our Q&A. I apologize, we did not get to one question. Again, it kind of gets into one of the definitions between, we talked about mentor, we talked about sponsor, and then the question was, where does a coach lie in that spectrum? Apologize, we didn't get to that question, but at this point, I do need to turn it back over to John Paul, president of ACHE of Georgia, to help close us out.
Very good. Thank you, Graham. Thank you again, Graham Fox, and all of our panelists. Thanks to Bonnie Matthews and our Career Development and Programs Committee for organizing today's meeting. Thank you also to our sponsors. We appreciate all you do to provide leadership for the healthcare industry in Georgia. And a special thanks for hosting today's program so that we can offer you these virtual interactive credits. And also, as a reminder, please be sure to complete ACHE's meeting evaluation. Your survey feedback is great help to us as we continually try to improve our programs. Let us know what you like and let us know what you would like to see. And now I'm going to turn this back over to Sherry Yoon of ACHE for some closing announcements. Thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you at one of our next events.
All right. On behalf of ACHE, I want to thank our chapter leaders that planned today's session, our moderator and panelists, and all of you for your participation. Please complete the evaluation, which is open for 1 week. The direct link is in the chat box. You can also access the evaluation by visiting your My ACHE page and selecting My Online Learning from the helpful link section on the right side of the screen. From there, click on the Access My Courses link, and you'll be directed to our learning management system where you can complete the evaluation. In the same location, y'all will be able to access the recording of the session within approximately 2 business days. Everyone who's attended today's event in its entirety will see their 1.5 hours of virtual interactive education credit posted to their My ACHE account within 2 weeks of this session in the My Education Credit section. That concludes our session, which is copyrighted in 2024 by the American College of Healthcare Executives, all rights reserved. Thank you, everyone.